Becoming a UX designer. Chapter 1. Don't make me think. Think of a product you love. Maybe it's your iPhone, your coffee machine, or your favorite suitcase. Or it could be a digital product, an app you use every day, or a social media platform you check constantly. What do you think makes this product so successful? Odds are its design is a major part of that. The product may have pleasing colors and clean lines, but design doesn't just refer to the way something looks. Design is the process by which products are created specifically to meet the needs of the people who will use them. In order to remain competitive, all products, from vacuum cleaners to websites, must cater to their users' needs. Otherwise, potential customers will move on to a different product. The process by which designers learn about their users' needs and design products accordingly is called user experience, UX design. No matter what kind of product you're designing or selling, you can use the principles of UX design to make it more successful. In this brief course, you learn the essential principles of UX design. And you learn many of the actionable steps used by professional designers to create and market successful products. Whether you're a designer, a CEO, a marketer, a coder, or just someone who appreciates design, you'll learn how user experiences are shaped. You'll finish this course prepared to think about your targeted users and audiences in a completely new way. And you'll be able to apply those insights to make any product you work on even better. We'll focus on web design, but these principles can be applied broadly to many types of products. According to UX expert and author Steve Krug, at the core of UX design is a single, all-important rule: don't make me think. This means that a product should be intuitive enough that any user can figure out how to use it without having to think too hard about it. If you can look at a product and just get it, that's successful UX design. Getting it means you can immediately tell which buttons to press or how to navigate a site to get to what you're looking for. You shouldn't have to stop and search, and you shouldn't run into any roadblocks. For example, if you're purchasing something online, the checkout process should run completely smoothly. The site you're on should guide you through the process of selecting an item and inputting your payment and shipment information. At no point should you get lost or confused about where to enter which pieces of information. In other words, well-designed products are ones we can use easily and intuitively. Chapter 2. Finding the right question. The UX design process is often broken down into 5 stages. Let's look at step 1, understanding. It may surprise you to learn that one of the most important qualities for a UX designer isn't technical, it's emotional. Experts agree that empathy is a key UX skill. That's because successfully designing a product requires a deep understanding of other people's needs, experiences, and desires. Before doing anything else, designers must learn how to empathize with users and their behaviors, both rational and irrational. This means understanding the choices that users will make as well as the feelings they'll have when using the product. This kind of information cannot only be gathered by asking users what they feel, what they want, or what they need. People don't always know how to articulate their needs and desires. There is often a gap between what people do and what they say they would do. UX research is the process by which we fill in that gap and find out what people really need. According to design expert Don Norman, designers need a clear sense of what problem their product is solving before they can conduct user research. Imagine you have a flower business and you'd like to build an online shop for it. You'll need to design an online store with a checkout process that customers can easily use to order flowers. First, you'll need to understand exactly what purpose your product is serving or what user need it's meeting. This may not be obvious. For example, users may not always know why or when they need flowers until the occasion comes up. And they may not always know what kind of flowers they need, or where they need to send them. A widely used process called the 5 Whys, which was first developed at Toyota, can help. To use the 5 Whys, ask why a problem occurred until you get down to the real reason. It may take more than 5, but 5 is a good place to start. From there, UX designers develop a user need statement, which clearly and concisely outlines the need that the product is intended to meet. User need statements should contain specific information about the user. For example, people in relationships need flowers for Valentine's Day, or parents need flowers for their children's graduations. Chapter 3. Planning for and conducting user research. Becoming a UX designer. Once you have a clear sense of the need your product is addressing, it's time to plan out the research phase. To do research for your online flower shop, you'll need to learn more about your future customers. That way, you'll know what features to build into your shop. Your research plan should lay out 1. Why you're doing research. 2. What you need to know. 3. who you're going to talk to 4, how you're going to find out what you need to know 5, risks and challenges that might come up along the way. In our example, you're doing research because you want to sell your flowers online and your customers need to be able to purchase them. You want to understand who buys flowers, when they buy them, why they buy them, and what they need in order to buy them. If they buy them already, where do they do it? And you should begin to identify which groups you'll need to talk to in order to find out this information. You'll likely want to find people to talk to who represent different groups of flower buyers. This could include people who regularly buy flowers, people who occasionally buy flowers, and people who don't buy flowers, to find out why they don't. You'll want to select for diversity across many categories, including age, background, location, and more. And then you can decide how you want to reach them. Maybe you want to conduct in-person interviews, where you ask them a series of questions about flower purchasing. Or maybe you'll send out a digital survey or questionnaire. In this stage of research, you'll want to ask more open-ended questions to find out how they might use your site, and what they might want and need. If you're having conversations, you'll want to record responses in writing, otherwise, aggregate their survey responses. People don't always know how to articulate their needs and desires, so UX designers have developed other research tactics. You'll want to draw on your empathy skills to put yourself in the position of various users and determine what you might want if you were them. And you'll also want to know what your competitors offer, so you can compare services and pricing. Research into the offerings of other major flower sellers will be an important source of knowledge as you build your own shop. In the next chapter, we'll cover what to do with all of the information you've gathered in this phase. Chapter 4: Synthesizing User Research. Becoming a UX designer. Once you're armed with raw data from user research, the next step is organizing and synthesizing that information. Many designers make maps that physically organize information by content, so you can begin to draw out themes and key ideas. An empathy map is often used as the first step in quickly sorting information. Try writing each piece of information on a post-it that can be easily moved around and categorized. Then create different sections for different types of feedback, i.e., a section for information related to users' feelings, a section for their needs, etc. This process should be somewhat intuitive, rather than thinking hard about each piece of information. UX designers tend to sort them rapidly. Then, you can begin to pull out the key themes and patterns in all of the information you're seeing in front of you. Another key tool for understanding the user experience is the creation of personas. A persona is an imaginary person who represents a user who will interact with the product. Create this imaginary person by focusing on the product's primary audience. Start by asking who will use your product most. Who needs it the most? From there, you can develop personas for these imaginary users and design with their needs in mind. Each should be distinct, for example, a husband who needs flowers for his anniversary, or a young person who is sending flowers to a sick grandparent. Once these personas have been developed, journey maps are a useful way to visually represent a user's experience. Journey maps are especially helpful for products and experiences that have a beginning, middle, and end. For example, a user might identify a need to purchase flowers and find your shop. Then, they'll browse your selection and search for the flowers they want. Next, they'll make their selection and check out, entering their payment and shipping information. The pathway from start to finish represents their user journey, and it's up to the UX designer to make that journey as smooth as possible. If your potential customer runs into any problems during the checkout process, they probably won't complete it and you won't make the sale. Creating a journey map helps designers map every step along the way and identify any potential issues that might arise. In the next chapter, we'll look at how to use this research to start building and testing a prototype of your product. Chapter 5: Building the Prototype. Armed with all of the data gathered in the research phase, designers can then begin to build a prototype. This early version of the product should be like a sketch that can easily be changed and adapted. Prototypes for a web product are called wireframes, or simple, bare-bones drafts of a digital product. It may not contain the right colors, designs, or branding, but it will contain the basic structure of the product. The goal of a good wireframe is to lay out the information architecture, or decide what all of the elements will be and how they will connect to each other. Good information architecture has clear hierarchies, meaning it's clear to the user what's most important. And it's clear how to navigate, or get from one page to another, since not every page can be displayed on the home page. UX designers often create site maps that visually organize every single page on the site and its connections to other pages. This makes it easy to see whether there is any duplicate information and whether pages have the right relationship to each other. In this phase, designers try to focus on incorporating what was learned in the research stage about the way users will interact with the product. But there's another key part of UX design that may or may not come up in your research. It's important to ensure that your product is accessible and inclusive to people with different needs and abilities. For example, your site should allow users to make the text bigger if they cannot read small text. Making accommodations like this should not disrupt the flow of your site or product as a whole. You might think that decisions like these only affect a small number of users, but in fact, about 20% of the population needs accommodations. When you incorporate features that are accessible to all different users, no matter their needs, you're making your product as inclusive as possible. And you'll likely run into creative solutions along the way that make your product even better for everyone. Chapter 6: Testing the prototype. After a prototype or wireframe has been created, a series of user tests will help you identify problems the product may have. Before you can build and launch the final product, first the prototype, and then the product should go through several rounds of testing. At each stage, the design team will then go back and incorporate feedback from the test, redesigning the prototype as necessary. Then, with enough information, they'll build the first version of the product, while continuing to test and tweak it as necessary. While the user research process involves both quantitative and qualitative data, testing should be focused on quantitative data. For example, in the online store, you can look at the total number of purchases made. And you can also calculate the percentage of people who make a purchase after beginning the checkout process. If it's taking them longer than usual to go through one step of the checkout process, that would be a red flag. Or you might notice that users who don't end up making a purchase all drop off at a certain point in the process. All of this information will give you clues about how you need to refine or change your product. During the design process, you may have become attached to your product design. And your ego may be involved, you designed it, after all. Testing whether your product measures up to objective standards for success will help your ego get out of the way. And, as a result, you'll be able to look at it more objectively and make improvements for greater success. Testing a product entails finding and interacting with real users. You'll need to watch how they interact with your product and talk to them about their experience as they use it. This should happen in a relaxed setting so that users are free to be honest and don't feel that they themselves are being tested on their abilities. However, you don't want to say anything that will make the users biased. So, try not to talk to them too much about the product itself before they begin using it. Instead, record all of their thoughts and reactions, especially when they are surprising to you. And make sure you have a large number of users testing out your product. That way, you can look at raw data. For example, if your product is a website, you can count how many pages users are visiting. And you can see, in real time, which pages they are navigating to and from. Through testing and iteration, your product will continue to improve. At the end of this process, you'll have designed a product or service that works better than you could have imagined. And you'll see it gain a loyal following of enthusiastic users. The main ideas. Chapter 6. Testing and iteration is key to building a successful product. Use quantitative metrics to measure success. When interacting with real users, create a relaxed environment that invites honest feedback.